I'm not going to tell you why the place is called Pointe du Hoc. I think we can all figure that out. The plan was to assault both sides of the point, but when the Rangers were coming in, they mistakenly called Point Précis as Pointe du Hoc. And so there was actually a delay while they gathered, and basically they all landed right below here. They scaled the cliff. They had ropes with grappling hooks on rockets that would shoot up, land into the barbed wire and stuff, and then the guys would climb it. They had a great difficulty with this. They did not anticipate the rain the night before. All the ropes were soaking wet. Only about half made it to their trajectory. Every ranger who made it to the beach made it up those ropes. Now, how is that possible? The Germans are here on top. They've got the high ground. Well, the USS Texas is parked right out here and starts lobbing shells on the Germans. And as a little bit of extra insurance, and this shows you what professional rangers were, they took long fuses and attached them to the grappling hooks, lit the fuses and shot them up. So when the Germans came to cut the ropes, they saw this fuse burning and thought, whoa, this thing's about to blow, and ran away. So that enabled the Rangers to come up. Now this spot right here becomes the commander's headquarters. It's Lieutenant Colonel Rudder. And there's a very famous photograph of this spot with that in the background and an American flag laying out on the ground to identify that the American forces had taken this area. That flag was provided by 201st Airborne soldiers who landed out in the drink the night before, swam ashore, were trying to figure out where they were and what was going on when the Texas parks itself and starts shelling the beach. They see these Rangers coming in, and as they're coming to the beach, they say, guys, let us fight with you. You know, we got nothing else to do. And they said, yeah, you got to get permission from Colonel Rudder. So the 2 airborne soldiers climbed up the ropes, came here, and Rudder said, okay, you guys are my bodyguards. And so they stuck with Rudder. At one point during the battle, he wanted to go out and check on things. He got about 50 feet out, got nicked in the heel, turned around, went right back to the headquarters. But the 2 airborne soldiers were with him. Basically, where that crane is, used to be a memorial with a big dagger. And that is, there's a cupola there that you can look out into the water, and that's where the Germans had an observation post. Most of the Rangers are going to land where we are, and that crane is. A few of them did make it up to the other side, but the German fire was so intense that the guys that were on the land had no idea that each other were there. One of the guys does find a cable and cuts it. Finds out later that the wire was leading all the way back to where the guns were set up. So now the Germans have no communication with what they see out here on the beaches and the guns themselves. The Rangers now are going to start working their way through all these shell holes to that road crossing that we came down. And I just want to point out that there was a rumor, myth, whatever you want to call it, that when all the soldiers landed on Omaha Beach where they were going to be these great shell holes that they were going to climb into, that the bombers were going to leave, and they would have protection. And they get to the beach and there's nothing, and they thought, man, they lied to us. Why did they tell us there were going to be these shell holes? That was a complete myth. Omar Bradley specifically said he was now going to be heavy weapons on their bombers, and for the sole reason of try driving a tank through this. You know, this is the kind of terrain that those bombers would have left. So he specifically said light munitions on those bombers. But even the assistant division commander of the 29th believed there were going to be shell holes. So you can see how some rumor got started and it just made its way through the ranks. So this to me is a perfect example of why Bradley said low munitions. Getting back to the fight. They worked their way over. 2 Rangers, Cole and Hymel, realized that there's no guns in these things, in these cut cement turrets that you can walk around. And so they cross the road, go downhill, and they find the guns. They look over to their right, they see a bunch of Germans huddled together, and they realize they're getting ready to start firing on the beaches. So how do they knock out these guns without being detected, drawing the Germans' attention? Well, they've got, what kind of hand grenade am I thinking of? I can't think of the word. Thermite grenade. This thing is going to burn real hot. It's not going to, it's just going to. So they go back and start collecting them from other Rangers, and they start dropping them down the barrels of these guns. Just to play it safe, Hymel takes his Thompson machine gun, wraps his jacket around it, and smashes out all the sights on all the guns, just as insurance. They start to make their way back, and they're kind of patting each other on the back, saying, way to go, we did it. Boom! There's a huge explosion. and they can't figure out what happened. Well, like I said, in all the confusion, other Rangers had made it up and found the ammunition and set it and blew it up. The plan was originally they were going to all scale up here, get to this ridge right where we're all standing, organize themselves, and move inland. Nothing like that happened. Of course, they just start moving inland.
Did you say though that they captured this point first?
No, they thought this was Pointe du Hoc, so they started sailing in towards it, realized their mistake, and what they had to do is they had to sail this way, right in front of the Germans. And the Germans over here had a major gun nest that was firing down on it. The Navy got called in. They say they not only destroyed it, but they blasted it off the cliff, and it tumbled down onto the beach.
Needed GPS.
They knock out. They knock out the guns by 12 noon, or no, I'm sorry, by 9 a.m., accomplishing their mission. But the mission number 2 is to hold that road because they don't want the Germans to support the 2 beaches where the Americans are landing. They go beyond the road, and they kind of have sort of a not an organized perimeter. And as the casualties are mounting and the sun starts going down, Rudder says, okay, pull everybody back right to the road because we need to have an even line. And that night it was still cloudy like it had been for D-Day. And one guy with a BAR decides he's going to, well, it doesn't really decide it, it just happens. The troops start pulling back. He's the last guy there. He's walking backwards, and the clouds would part, the moon would come out. He would see the Germans, bang, 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 duck, wait for the clouds to come back, keep moving back when the clouds would move out of the way, and he just did this fighting retreat all the way back to the road and kind of saved everybody's butt. There's a famous story that they had actually taken ladders from a London fire department and were not only using to scale these cliffs, but they assembled one on one of the landing craft with 2 Vickers machine guns on the top. But when the guy came into this area, the water was so rough that he was going like a metronome back and forth. And every account I've read, the story ends there. I don't know if he got sick, if he climbed down, whatever became of it, if they rammed it onto the ground, the story just ends there. But the Rangers end up holding out for about 3 days without relief. They are getting some very minimal supplies up the cliffs, but nothing major, until finally elements of the 5th Rangers and the 29th Division finally break the siege from this direction, and the Rangers join the fight.
Gun emplacements. Pointe du Hoc. Quite the ruins after the bombings. It softened up the beach before D-Day. Ammunition stores.